SXOLLIE was founded by Laura and Karol in sunny South Africa way back in 2014. The simple idea they had was to make single varietal ciders from the apples we already know and love, Golden Delicious, Granny Smith and the Pink Lady. In 2017 they decided to move their head office to the UK. In this episode we catch up with Laura Clacey to see how this has worked out for them. My name is Holger Meyer and this is DrinksWorld. Welcome to the show, and today my guest is Laura Clacey. I met Laura probably around 2014 when she launched her SXOLLIE cider brand in South Africa. Welcome to the show, Laura.
Thank you very much, Holger. I'm delighted to be with you.
And you moved from, where did you work before you came to South Africa?
To SXOLLIE. So I have quite a long, sordid history before starting with SXOLLIE, and nothing to do with booze at all. I actually spent most of my youth in sustainability consulting. So prior to starting SXOLLIE, I worked at KPMG, and before that, I was the South African national weather presenter on SABC2 Morning Live.
I see that, and it would be quite good if you could predict sunny weather for the UK, and I'm sure it would be good for your cider sales.
Oh my God, we're desperate for summer. The weather here is so miserable. I am desperate to get out of here at the moment.
Yeah, so sustainability is a big topic, I think, for everybody. Especially, I think, in first world countries like the UK, we hear the topic starting in South Africa. So I'm glad to see that you're on the forefront of kind of that drive.
Absolutely. So I think, starting up SXOLLIE and our reasons for starting the brand were quite different to a lot of people's reasons for starting an alcohol brand. So having been in sustainability, as I progressed through my career, I got more and more interested in social impact creation and how you create value for human beings, not just the environment. And when we decided to start a business together, Karol and myself, my partner and husband, we had a few key criteria for what our business had to be, and it wasn't necessarily even going to be in alcohol. So I knew that I wanted to start an ethical business focused on trading with South Africa and creating long-term sustainable trade opportunities for South Africa to create things like employment opportunities, economic development, etc. And we were looking at what we could do, and we knew our business had to be totally unique and totally different and better than anything that had been on the market beforehand. So we decided we both love a drink, because who doesn't? And that's what kind of inspired SXOLLIE. So we looked around and we're like, oh my goodness, South Africa has some of the best apples in the world. I mean, the apples we eat in the supermarket. If you go down the supermarket shelves in the UK, you'll see that the apples are not often from the UK. They're imported from sunny places like South Africa. Mm-hmm. So we thought, why not try and make a cider using South African eating apples rather than cider apples? Because if you bite into a cider apple in the UK, you will notice that it is so tannic and so bitter, you'd never ever be able to swallow that thing.
Yeah.
So that was the birth of SXOLLIE.
That is quite different. And just for the listeners, there's a wonderful podcast interview with John Murray, who was the international production cider manager for Bulmer cider, he lives in South Africa now, and I used to work with him, and he talks at length about all the different, the whole cider culture and all the different cider apples and everything. But it's a very interesting conversation that I had with him. Now, we went over. I was fortunate enough to go and visit Bulmer's. Those apples, you can't eat them.
Exactly. So how they make them taste good is they add bucket loads of sugar to them and artificial flavorings and colorings and all kinds of other things to get them to taste like something a modern day consumer would actually want to swallow. So just because cider was born in the UK doesn't mean it's the best.
Okay.
Well, that's what I think anyway. Maybe don't tell them that.
No. So, I mean, with names like Golden Delicious and Granny Smith, I mean, are those typical South African apples, or do you also find those overseas?
They are very much the pride and joy of South Africa.
Okay.
They are grown in. So the Golden Delicious, I think South Africa, and don't quote me on this statement, but I think South Africa is the largest exporter of Golden Delicious apples, which is our kind of hero product. And then Granny Smith and Pink Lady or Cripps Pink apples are grown in many warm climate countries like Australia. They're grown around the world. But South Africa is definitely one of the main producing regions of these delicious apples.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, and what else is? I mean, what else is different? So, using different apples.
Yes. So, a few key differences that we kind of see as our unique points. One is that we're using these eating apples, delicious apples, grown in the sunshine. That sunshine makes them sweet and ripe and juicy and taste great. So that's kind of we believe that good cider is made in the orchards. Mm-hmm. The other main point of difference is, Karol and I love a good glass of wine. And we'd never really thought about cider before we made cider. And we're kind of thinking through the reasons why why a wine drinker doesn't necessarily like cider. Mm. And I think one of the reasons why is because it's a whole blend of apples. So we thought to attract a modern consumer and a wine drinker or a gin and tonic drinker or, the average guy or girl who doesn't really consider cider would be to make them single varietal ciders. So we use one type of apple in each bottle and nothing else. Okay. So we've got, the Granny Smith is purely made from Granny Smith apples, Golden Delicious purely from Golden Delicious, etc., etc. The other point of difference is that we don't need to add any crap to SXOLLIE. Like not one added drop of sugar, concentrate, water. It's literally just the apples made like a wine in stainless steel wine tanks. And I'd say that's sort of the main point of difference between us and the UK cider. They tend to use a blend of apples, as you would have heard from Bulmers, and their production processes are extremely different to ours.
Yeah. And yours is made in Elgin?
Yes, absolutely. So all the apples are from Elgin, and they fermented within, I think it's 3 kilometers from the orchards themselves. Mm-hmm. So it's all a very close little process. And we make it in a local winery just up the road at Almankirk. And then we export them in. Do you remember bag and box wines back in the day? Or do you still get them?
You still get them. Popsuck, yeah.
So if you imagine a 27,000 litre popsuck, it's how we export them to the UK, and then we bottle them within 10 kilometres of the port. So it's all a very kind of neat process, and then SXOLLIE is stored there in bottle until it's shipped off to our various trade outlets.
Okay. And I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of the wine is also exported like that.
Exactly. That's how, we're not geniuses. We just borrow from other sectors. Right. So yes, that's how a lot of the South African wines are exported. They do it for a number of reasons. One of which the one that appeals to me most, is the environmental impact. Because if you ship them over in bottle, you're basically shipping glass is the bulk of the volume.
Glass.
Whereas
and air.
Shipping tanks, or air is worse, let's not go there. But the equivalent mileage or environmental carbon emissions is of the entire shipping process of our stock is the equivalent of driving that same load 200 kilometers in a truck. Mm-hmm. So really the environmental impact of shipping is so small compared to road freight. And air freight, it does not even go there. So that's one of the main reasons why we do it that way.
I saw your new bottles. Have those been launched on your Instagram?
Yes, they have. So they're currently live in some of the big supermarkets and Nandos in the UK. So our bottle development has been my sort of baby and passion project as we've gone. And if you, on the back of my shelf behind me, I've got a long row of SXOLLIE bottles from inception to where we are today. And when we started, the whole design around the bottle was the repeat X pattern.
Yeah.
And that university studies was archaeology, and I was really inspired by the movement of people. Being a wanderlust traveler myself, always looking to move and find new adventures. I'm fascinated by how we track the movement of people over time. And one of the ways they do that in Southern Africa is by looking at pottery shards left over, found in, they're called middens, which is basically old age dustbins. And one of the patterns we often find is that repeat X pattern. So we took that a step further and had our X, our hero symbol, floating at the top, much bigger than the rest of the repeat X's. And that to us has always been the SXOLLIE, the cheeky rascal, the one who rose ahead and hustled his way out. And that's always been our kind of, mine and Karol's sort of symbol of what we stand for and who we are. We're always hustling and pushing and trying to do things that no one's done before. And as time has gone by, that X symbol has grown in importance to us as people, and every rendition of our bottle, the X has grown bigger and bigger and bigger. And so a few months ago, we're like, okay, it's time to take the plunge, and here are the X, and make the SXOLLIE the front and center of our entire product and branding and marketing messaging. So yes, our new bottles now have one enormous X on the front of them. They're very simple. It is very simple, and has great shelf standout. We've had quite a lot of people comment on the various social media platforms that they've discovered our bottle because of this new pattern. Or this new branding.
Yeah.
So we're really, really excited about that. So we've launched in the Golden and Granny Smith in Waitrose, and Sainsbury's have the new branding now, and Nandos have definitely got all the new branded bottles up proudly on display in the back of their shelves, which is very exciting to see.
I love that new look. It is so hard to find a really, really nice brand, or that where everybody understands it, or everybody in South Africa at least. And the word SXOLLIE and the way you've written it, obviously you can then trademark it, but it's the way that you've taken that X and proudly displayed that, I think is genius. How did you find that name?
SXOLLIE. So again, when sort of setting up SXOLLIE, as I said, I wanted it to be very proudly South African, not in a kind of schmaltzy, proud WhatsApp brand. I didn't want to go down the cheesy, proudly South African route, but I wanted to hero the amazing culture and everything about South Africa that I just adore. So I wanted the word of our brand to be very South African. And so we looked around at what we were doing. And I mean, Holger, you know how hard it is to start an alcohol brand or work in booze in South Africa. The red tape is a very long list. So so I wanted a word that was appropriate to what we were actually doing. And especially at the beginning, I really felt like we were having to be SXOLLIEs. Having to pretend that our boots were bigger than what they were. Getting access to capital and finance was an endless uphill battle that we never quite actually got around in all the time that we were there. And so we were being SXOLLIEs and hustling. And so I thought there's no better brand name for our cider than a SXOLLIE. So in the UK, they really struggle to pronounce it. I'm not going to lie. So they normally talk about the band with the big X on it. Or people have a stab at it. But we've had to, on the back of all our new bottles, put the pronunciation on the back. So it says something along the lines of, struggling to pronounce it, don't worry, you're not first. It's SXOLLIE, like lolly or trolley or dolly.
Okay.
And give people a bit of a hand. But to be honest, it's a point of difference for us. And the challenge to pronounce it is part of the kind of exciting marketing opportunity we have, rather than a challenge that's stopping people from drinking the product.
Did you have to employ an agency to find the name, or was it within you?
It was within us. We did use an agency at the start, just to kind of help us pull it all together.
Yeah.
But we kind of gave a long list of names, and they kind of shortlisted it for us to about 5, and then we all decided SXOLLIE was the best.
Yeah.
So it was a very active approach. But with this new design that we've done, we used the designer, Alec Tier, who actually famously redesigned Heinz baked bean tin, and now SXOLLIE. And I think it's some of his best work. So we're very proud of him. But yeah, I tend not to like using agencies. We're very much we're SXOLLIEs. We like DIYing it and kind of figuring things out for ourselves. And I think it's what's helped us along the way a lot. I think a lot of brands, especially in the UK, are very agency driven. And I think you lose your authenticity and story if you rely too much on consultancies and agencies and branding guys and marketing agencies, etc. They don't get what you're all about necessarily. So we try as much as we can to do things ourselves and hire people internally. Again, sort of building a culture and a team is really important to us, and a great team and a fun team that go for drinks on Fridays.
Yeah, I also hate the agency guys or the work that's produced by agencies because it doesn't look authentic, and I think that was part of the attraction to the whole craft movement with all the brewers and the distillers really coming up with authentic stories and brands.
Yeah, absolutely, and you can't replicate an authentic story. I mean, that's one of the big challenges that the big breweries have at the moment, and why they're buying up so much of these small, or so many of these small brands, is because of that authenticity of story. Yeah. The kind of the backstory and the brand story is what people are looking for these days. They want to know that a product is real and made by real people. It's not made in some factory on a production line where no one knows what actually went into the product. So it's an exciting time in the drink space in the UK, and I see you've had some really exciting developments in South Africa as well with the Duchess, and I see some of the other breweries are doing particularly well post-COVID. So I'm very happy to see that as well.
Yeah, I think it might take a bit of more time before they get back into the market. Laura, now the big question for all South Africans is, the market is so small in South Africa for these niche products. Is it worth going overseas, or what drove you to move to the UK?
That's a very hard question. And I think for every brand and every person and every sector, I'd say it's slightly different. For us, the impetus to move was really caused by the movement in the UK and the growth that we were seeing in SXOLLIE. So we had, a guy, a true SXOLLIE and an amazing human being who took a punt on SXOLLIE and brought over one pallet to see what he could do with SXOLLIE. And at the time we were very, very small, and we were so excited to have sold the pallet to the UK. He brought SXOLLIE here and entered us into the International Cider Challenge, which is the biggest kind of cider specific competition within the UK. And lo and behold, we got a gold medal on our very first attempt. And one of the judges was the Waitrose buyer, who was so impressed by the liquid that she listed SXOLLIE immediately. And suddenly our volume shift of what we were selling in South Africa flipped completely, and the UK became our biggest market. And shortly after that, with a bit of hustle and doing a few events and things around, we got an offer from Sainsbury's. And to be honest, I thought it was spam when I got the message, because I couldn't believe that such a big retailer would want to list a tiny little brand like ours. But lo and behold, it was true. And so, those things really made us think. I mean, at the time, we were having major distribution issues in South Africa. And we're like, why are we struggling to be SXOLLIEs every single day that we wake up in the morning, when in the UK people are actually asking us for the product? So we make a decision. Karol, my partner, is British born, and so we figured, we'll move our entire head office and life over to the UK. So for us, it's been the best decision ever. We're now in 4 out of the 5 major retailers, and we're the exclusive cider in Nandos, which is the 17th largest multi-site group in the country. So, I mean, it's definitely a decision I do not regret for 1 second, except when it's pissing down with rain and I'm feeling very sorry for myself. But other than that, business-wise, it's been a very good decision. But I see, I think the challenges for moving a brand overseas is the size of the market. So, for example, beers, I think there are 4,000 beer manufacturers in the UK. Again, don't quote me on that number. I'm sucking it out of my thumb, but there are thousands. For a craft brewery to move the head office over to the UK, you'd need to think about what makes you special and different to the other brands that are in the market, and how does your story relate to a UK market. The same with the gins. I mean, there are so many on the market. But if you've got something unique and different that's not currently being developed and exploited in the UK, then, I mean, absolutely, the market here is huge. And things, to be honest, are much simpler, much easier, much more geared up to small business. Everyone here loves an entrepreneur. There's no, I don't know, in South Africa, I always felt like my friends were judging me for running a small business. Whereas here, people kind of hero worship you for being a small entrepreneur and love talking about their mate who runs a cider company. So I guess, I mean, my answer is different strokes for different folks.
And how did you end up in the super SXOLLIE retailer, Nandos?
Super SXOLLIE. So Nandos, I mean, I can't take credit for that. That was entirely Karol's job. But Karol is, I think he embodies my partner, Karol. I don't know if I keep saying my partner. I don't know if I mentioned his name before. It is Karol. I will give him that credit there. He is a true SXOLLIE, down to literally every ounce of his being and bald head. He decided that Nandos was the perfect partnership for us. And I mean, we've all always thought that their marketing's amazing. Their brand is proudly South African without being schmaltzy. We have so many brand similarities between ourselves and Nandos. But he decided he was going to focus on Nandos. And every single Monday, he sent Nandos an email for 2 years before we got an answer. They were so fed up. One day they said, okay, fine, send over samples. And they tried them and they were like, oh my God, this is amazing. And so the conversation developed from there. But then obviously we had COVID, and then we had all these HGV crisis. And then Nandos had no chicken, and there were all kinds of holdups that delayed the process of launch. But we're in. It happened, and it's going really well. We're really excited by that partnership, and I mean, they truly are awesome to work with. They are so much fun. They love a good drink. Their teams are young. They're fun. They innovative. They love a quirky, unusual idea. They are SXOLLIEs. They're also SXOLLIEs for sure.
Yeah,
I'd hire every one of their team if I could.
That's a wonderful story. Laura, the challenges in South Africa, what were the biggest challenges?
Let me start with the good things about South Africa, because I absolutely love SA, and I think South Africa has a world of opportunity there. South Africa is, number one, a beautiful country, and who wouldn't want to live in Cape Town on the beach and spend your Saturdays suntanning on Camps Bay? I mean, really amazing. People in South Africa are incredible, and the lifestyle and produce we have in South Africa is amazing. However, there are some severe challenges to being a small business in South Africa. First and foremost, the systems are not set up for small businesses. And I think anybody who set up, whether it's a drinks brand or something else, will attest to this. Getting everything from bank accounts to licenses to operate to setting up the actual company. Nothing takes days. Everything takes weeks or months. Paperwork gets lost. The amount of time you need to spend in the physical bank rather than running an actual business is a real pain in the ass. So I'd say that's sort of challenge number one in getting set up. You've got to have some real wits about you and some fuss bite to get this thing over the line. Secondly, in booze specifically, I think the challenges are distribution. So being in the UK, going from the top end of England to the bottom, I think is about an 8-hour drive. So realistically, you could, if you were under massive stress, get your product from London to, I don't know, Scotland in 4 or 5 hours. You can get it there in a day. South Africa, on the other hand, if we're living in Cape Town, all our stock's in Cape Town, and we get an amazing customer who's in Bloemfontein, there's no way to get it there. So distribution and the actual size of the country and the lack of entrepreneurs or the lack of kind of buying power or scale makes distribution very, very tricky in South Africa. And I think that's the number one challenge that small alcohol providers have or producers have. You can be huge in Cape Town and just stock that market. But the minute you try and expand out of Cape Town, or if you're in Joburg, likewise into Cape Town, it just becomes quite tricky to manage the logistics and distribution. So I think that for me would be the number one challenge facing South African alcohol producers or anyone developing an actual product that's for sale. That, and then the last thing I'd say is the lack of access to funds. So in the UK, for example, when we set up our UK company, we got a bank overdraft of, I think it was £20,000 just because we were starting a business. In South Africa, our entire credit card overdraft in the whole time that we were there was 400 Rand. So essentially, we couldn't even buy flights to Joburg to a festival without using our credit card as a top-up card. And the amount of times that I was about to pay for something and then realize that there wasn't enough money in the card, and then I've got to jump on the internet and the internet connection is crap, and then I've got to try and transfer money from one account to the other, but I need an OTP and I can't get the OTP, so I've got to run to the bottom of the driveway to get cell phone signal and then run back, and by that time the flight has disappeared off the line. I mean, it's those sorts of things that access to finance is a real challenge. I think there are a lot of tax incentives in the UK for high net worth individuals to invest in small businesses. It's called the SEIS and EIS scheme, where investors are basically guaranteed a lot of their money back if the business fails and massive upsides if the business succeeds. So that's really opened up the door for entrepreneurs to get that initial startup capital that they need to get going. So I think, access to finance, distribution, and what was the first thing I said? I can't remember. And distances would be the three main challenges in South Africa. And
how's the online retailing helping you? Is that a big thing?
Yes and no. So online, we never planned to be an online brand. I always wanted to exist in the real world. We operate in bottles, and bottles are heavy and quite expensive to send in the post. So online was never really a strategy we were looking to deploy. But then COVID came around, and within 2 days we built a very, very basic spit and sawdust website that could take sales online. And we had huge success during COVID on our online shop because everyone was too scared to leave their houses and wanted to support small businesses. And I mean, it was great. But since then, the online space has dropped off a little bit for us because we're not investing heavily in digital. But I mean, online is great. I mean, Amazon is a brilliant, I mean, for its troubles, it's also an amazing online platform and definitely helps grow the brand. For us, digital is more about using influencers and building a tribe or a community of SXOLLIEs that kind of support us and follow us. And we use it more to tell people where we're going and what we're doing and kind of show the brand story rather than using it as a sales platform. How's online sales in South Africa? Takealot
has listed a lot of the brands, and I think it's working very well here.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
When I was there was online sales.
Yeah, and then retailers like ShopriteCheckers Checkers has launched a 60-minute service. So within a certain area, they'll deliver within 60 minutes. And that's really worked well. Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, that is definitely a trend we're seeing here too.
Yeah.
So the growth of the 60-minute delivery services, I think there are about 8 or 9 of them competing in the market at the moment, and that's really growing small businesses. And yeah, I think it's an area to watch. Time will tell who buys who out and who wins at the end. It seems like an arms race at the moment, but it's definitely something to watch, and an exciting development in booze since COVID.
Yeah. Laura, where can people read more about you?
We do have a website. Our website, we do have a website. It's SXOLLIE.com. So SXOLLIE.com. We're also on Instagram as SXOLLIE Xider, so SXOLLIE, and then Xider with an X at the beginning. So we've decided that in South Africa, we don't call it cider, we call it cider with an X, because we're cool. Joking. So SXOLLIE at SXOLLIE Xider, and Facebook is at SXOLLIE. And so yeah, definitely go check us out and find us around. We are available physically to drink in South Africa again, which we're very excited about. We're in quite a few spots in the Western Cape, and yeah, I mean, I can always send over or pop in the link Mike Moore's contact details if you want to find SXOLLIE in SA. I know he's very happy to help.
And Mike Moore is from the beverage people.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. Sorry,
Okay.
I just know him as Mike, my hero who brought SXOLLIE back. And excitedly, in South Africa, we launched in cans. So easier to consume, easier to dispose of, and taste amazing.
And I love the branding on the cans.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm so excited by the cans. They turned out amazingly well. So you'll be seeing a lot more of those cans around in the next few weeks and months.
Wonderful. Laura, thanks for your time, and I want to let you get back to all your events on Thursday. And yeah, the whole of South Africa is rooting for you over there in the UK. Well done.
Oh, Holger, thank you so much. And it was an absolute honor and pleasure to speak to you again after so many years. So please, and if you want to put to people, if anyone wants to have a chat or catch up or find out more about our story or needs advice on anything to do with the UK, I am genuinely here for anybody who needs a chat.
Wonderful.
Even if it's just an emotional support to give them a pat on the back and say, you're doing fine.
Thanks for that, Laura. Thank you for listening to our stories here online. In the show notes, you will also find a link where you can subscribe to become part of our community and be notified when we upload our latest content.